pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so welcome to the August loan review meeting for the JCIDA. We've got a new item and a continuing item, and then we'll determine if there's other business as we get to that point. So I guess without further ado, we can go through the Royal Inn. Excuse me.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
One sentence, which I just did.
That's fine.
I suppose we could go around the room. We have a guest.
Okay, I'm
today,
sorry.
And that might help her. She's an intern.
Okay, that's fine. I'll start. Rob Aliasso, and I'm Chair of Justice Committee, and also on the JCIDA board. Dave?
I'm Dave Converse. I'm chairman of the JCIDA.
Don Alexander, I'm the CEO of the IDA. Paul Warning, IDA.
Bill Judson, IDA.
Lisa Willier, IDA.
Marshall Weir, Director of Marketing, Jefferson County Economic Development.
Peggy, staff member.
Marcus Wolf, part-time Daily Times.
Dave Zembeck, Deputy CEO.
Leighton, CFO. Joe Russell, I'm the attorney for the IDA.
John Jennings, IDA.
You might introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Okay, so my name's Danielle Simmons, and I'm interning this summer with Apex Clean Energy with the Glue Island Wind Project. I manage the office in Sag Harbor and do errands like this for Neil because he is stationed in New Jersey, so it's more convenient for me to go to things like this.
Thank you. Good point, John. So now back to the agenda, and we have a new application from the Royal Inn Motel, the Jai Laxmi Corp. Mr. Patel, I believe, Dinesh Patel. So everyone has received their packet of this information, and I guess we can go through and discuss their application for a micro enterprise loan and the information that's contained within. So I guess open for discussion with our committee and attending board members.
This is essentially a working capital loan. However, it's specifically to repave their parking lot. Total price is $15,000. I told them the most we could consider is $40,000, and they said 5% at 48 months would be okay with them. It's not creating any jobs. Ordinarily, this is not something I would even bring to the committee. But they own 3 motels. The Royal is clear, no liens whatsoever on it. They paid off all their other loans in advance of when they were due. They're very low risk.
So it's probably the best loan application we're going to see in a while. And I want to make, I guess, one other point to bring this up. I guess this is new territory for me and maybe new territory for the board in general. How do we treat this as a deviation? Because the way the rules are, it's $40,000 maximum of 40% of the project value. Being that it's working capital, can we somehow reorganize this so it's $100,000?
As a board, you can change the conditions.
Okay, so I just wanted to have that discussion that, I mean, I guess we should treat this as a $100,000 working capital plus pavement, or including pavement, so that we can hit the lesser of the 40,000 of the project value, which is also the maximum threshold for the micro enterprise loan.
Yes.
I guess it's one way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying not to break the
Yeah.
rule. I don't know that there's a hard, fast rule, but anyway, so just open for discussion on that. Yes.
So
John or
we have
Dave?
the ability to do this loan with?
It's a micro enterprise. These are.
Well, what are the guidelines for micro enterprise? Any business or?
The rules say 5 or less employees, including the owner, and then it's what I just said, up to 40,000 or 40% of the project value. Plus you have to meet income thresholds, whatever that is. And that's up to Lyle, I think.
We review all of that. This particular motel has exactly 4 employees.
Yeah, and this is only for the Royal Inn, not
It's only
his
the Royal Inn.
other holdings, which are 2 other hotels, correct? The Days
Motel
Inn and
6
the Motel 6.
Days Inn.
Yeah.
Some years ago, John, the county handed this pot of money off to the IDA to administer with the notion that it is used to create small business, to help small business get started. Typically, we try to find things that are job creators. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's certainly the driver here. We typically ask these folks who go for micro-enterprise loan to go through the SBDC training, which is a very excellent precursor to business. But obviously, these folks have been involved with the agency for years. They've been just outstanding clients of ours. They provide what we think is a pretty good service to Fort Drum folks and so on, and have been honorable people to do business with. So from that point of view, although as Lyle says, not a job generator, it certainly is a loan that qualifies in our opinion.
And you could argue it's a job retainer, because that was
Well,
a qualification
yes,
as
you
well.
certainly could. Yeah, you certainly could. And it's not 100% on target, but it's certainly close enough to make it, I think, something worth considering.
I guess the other aspect about is, I look at it as, I'll just call it a job retainer, but also increasing the value of the land and structure
Yes,
such
absolutely.
that at some point there might be more tax revenue as a result of such.
These folks are interested in maintaining their properties so
Yeah.
that they are a continual asset to the community, where some don't necessarily follow that logic. But,
Yeah. He's essentially pledging as a personal guarantee, and you can see his equity in all of his holdings is many-fold times the amount of money that is being requested.
Right.
And as Lyle said, he's always been ahead of payments and on time and never really causing any issues.
Always make payments in advance.
For this loan type, that's, I would say, unique.
yeah.
What's the interest rate of banks today?
6.
Well, depends.
I mean, are we a better deal at 5 and that's why he's coming to us, or what?
I don't think it's a better deal.
I don't think it's a better deal. It's probably the thing we offer is the fact that we'll consider something like this, where the banks might look askew at it a little bit. Our interest rates are no longer the driver that used to be. When I first started, it used to be you got a low cost interest rate here, and that made it very competitive. Now the issue is, if we didn't subordinate our loans, we'd be in trouble with our loan programs, because the interest rates are, in some cases, more than the banks charge, and we have to go through this public process, which, the banks simply don't do. So if you've got a good banking relationship, you can probably drive the same type of interest rates, resources.
And the other issue is that we've got cash sitting there, and if we leave cash sitting there, any interest we get from the cash has got to go back to the government. This interest here gets revolved right back into the loan fund, so it brings it back to help induce building our loan.
I guess we're turning our assets into working capital for us, essentially, because we're gaining some revenue from it. In other words,
Gives us more money to loan out
Yeah.
for other businesses.
I know a lot of these types of loans usually are of much higher risk than what this particular loan
Typically
is,
are.
even though it's kind of like walking the fine line of the, meeting all of the requirements as it's written down.
Well, the mission of the agency is to create economic activity, and so, this is one vehicle that allows us to do that. As Dave says, we take some risk with some of these monies, but that's what it's designed for. One of the most difficult things we have in northern New York is to find capital for projects. We've struggled with this problem for years, and we've tried a number of ways to attract capital, but boy, it's really tough. And we're not talking about loans necessarily when we say capital. We're talking about investment dollars in the community. So this is a piece of it, but.
And I think another thing to point out, the rest of, I guess, what the qualifications are for this is 10% equity from the participant, so they're putting in a little bit more than 10%. They're putting in about 16.9 out of because the total paving estimate was about 57,000, call it, and with the 40,000 loan, they're putting in 17,000 roughly, so it's certainly more than the 10%, so they're looking, at least meeting that aspect. They have the employees, I guess, is the working capital versus percent of the project, so that's the only thing that I would even consider up for discussion, other than the fact this is as close to a guaranteed repayment as we're probably gonna see in a long time, for this type of
I
loan.
agree with that.
For this type of loan.
And this is a family business, by the way, and they have, the family has come in and met with Lyle and I and the staff numbers of times to keep us up to speed on where they are, what's going on, that kind of thing. And so you kind of develop a comfort level with these people that they're gonna pay their loan back, and that's a healthy situation.
Plus, we're getting a first position on the collateral side, which is, I guess,
Good point.
good.
Good point.
I don't know if that's always the case with these.
It's seldom the case.
Well, we do first position because there's no outstanding.
Yeah.
There's no mortgage.
But which is, I guess, the strength of the equity of the applicant.
I imagine the only reason they're here is that we're less bureaucratic than the banks are.
Yeah.
Well, it's $100 application fee, it's 1 month and it's done, and, yeah, you don't have to do too much.
Well, they also know us. I mean, we've had this relationship now for a number of years, so it's, when they call up, well, I don't know exactly who it is. We know we've met them. We know face to face. We go up there occasionally. We shake their hands. We know who they are. So,
I'll make a motion that we move this to the board for the,
Okay, a second. Okay, any other discussion from the rest of our board members? Staff? Okay, resolution to accept the application, and I guess we have two that can accept it. Dave and John, do you accept the resolution that you,
yeah, it's actually not accepting the application
Okay.
because that's done on the staff level, but
the resolution?
it's moved the resolution to
Okay.
the board,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, both of you?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess we will move the application to the full board for consideration. Don't know if we'll have time in our September meeting, but it seems like a lot of things are getting packed into the half-hour meeting you scheduled. You'll be talking on the bus, in other words?
probably so.
Should not take long.
Okay, so we'll move this to the full board for consideration at the next available full board meeting.
Yep.
Okay. On to a continuance of the Apex Blue Island Wind application, revised application. So I guess to keep our entire group up to speed, we had a board meeting a committee meeting on May 16th. We sent a letter on May 19th. We got a revised application back on the 22nd or 23rd of August. That was sent out, not with the packet, but Joe Russell forwarded it on to the committee members. I actually, the other evening, forwarded it on to the rest of the board because they weren't actually copied on it. So they had it and were able to review it if they had any questions. I do, just, I guess, point of question. It looks as though the letter we sent on May, did that go to a bad email address? Because I see some trailing emails below about Neil asking, we responded, what's going on, and something about a bad email address. Did he not get our May 19th email initially? From you, about the things we needed in the updated application?
Right. I think what was going on there, the committee had said we would wait until we got affirmation from everyone in terms of what we were asking, and we weren't going to send that letter until that was done. So there was a certain time lapse there, and then Neil had called, and I said a letter was forthcoming from us at some point in time.
But you sent him an email on May 19th.
Yes.
Because I have a copy of that, and then Joe sent another. It looks as though the May 19th email from you, he made some parenthetic question that this went to a bad email address, sorry I didn't see it, or something in other words.
It may have gone
Okay.
awry. I can't remember exactly what happened, honestly. So.
All right. So we have an updated application. We, I guess, have two letters. The one initially that was sent by Don, that was reviewed by the committee, asking for, I'd say, 5 or 6 things to be updated in an application. Also, in addition to that, Joe sent a letter, I guess, being more in depth about a couple things, $25,000 what's the best word for it, retainer? Funds?
Escrow.
Escrow, okay. The escrow amount, because there was a lot of questions about that. So all of those documents, I sent all of those documents out to the rest of the board, plus our committee had already received that. So with that, I think it would be important to maybe do a checklist. Did we get everything back in the application that was asked for? And really have some discussion, move this thing along, and if we can recommend this to the full board for their continued consideration with the preface that once we get the $25,000 escrow account, which has always been the case. So with that, I'll shut up for as long as I can, which is very hard, and allow others to
Well, should we take the list
put it-
that we generated? and
yeah,
put
I
out
mean,
there?
I actually have, I'm using the letter from Don on May 19th as the list. Joe's wasn't as maybe prescriptive, it sort of did have a lot of these same elements in there. So if you,
This is, I think, is that on your?
this one is what I, no, I don't know what email address this went to, but it looks as though this was sent. So I think starting out, balance sheet, did we get a balance sheet, Lyle? I know it was sort of private and mine have only come to you.
Yes, we received nothing but the application.
Okay, so,
And the reason for that, according to Neil, by the way, I asked him specifically about that. The company, because of age and the way these things are typically evolved, doesn't really have a company balance sheet yet. They will have one, and once that is done, then the process will provide that to us.
Okay.
So it'll be along in the process somewhere, and we'll keep trying.
I mean, they have holding company and a parent company too, I think.
Well, right,
At
I
the
mean,
minimum, they could do something, even if it's only given a while, I think we should have it in our file. I mean, my 2 cents, there should really be no different treatment to this applicant than others, because it kind of prejudices other applicants. So if we can just ask, for me, I would just say, that's a tentative thing, just keep it there, it's not gonna hold anything up, but we can have it put into the file for Lyle. We certainly don't need it out in the public, I understand the privacy of it, and we can, request for that to be given to Lyle. I think the PPA that was addressed, in the sense that there really is, somewhere in the application or in his response to your letter, I recall, they kind of have a 10-year program generally in place, but not solidified. I mean, it's kind of hard to sell something that's not
Yeah, this-
built yet. We get it.
Exactly. This'll all begin to shape as we work through the process, and it's going to be extensive yet. I suspect.
I think question number 3 was
I think we were gonna add that.
answered.
Rob,
Yes,
quick question.
go right ahead.
We had asked for 2 applications, one for generation and one for transmission, and we received 1 application.
Yeah.
We've received one.
Yeah, and the transmission was only if they wished it to be considered. I think Don's letter said in the past we wouldn't consider it, but send us one if you'd like us to consider it with an application fee, or, no, I think we waived the application fee, correct? So,
Neil's latest correspondence too stated that they would look at that and possibly send that later on, but they were just doing the.
and that's understood too. I mean, there's no sense in getting that ahead of this. You don't have a transmission project without a generation project, so there's no sense in tying up anybody's time on that.
But you're right,
Page
Paul, I
five.
agree with the second application.
5A. I think that one's a piddly shit thing. Okay, I don't,
Letters that came out.
John or Dave, I personally don't think because it says Town of Hansfield and not Jefferson County that that's a big deal.
No.
Okay, you agree, John? In the application, okay, so that one is, we know where the Town of Hansfield is. We're the Jefferson County IDA, and there's only one Town of Hansfield, I think we can connect the dots on that one, right?
Man, if we thought, suggested we didn't know, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
We're not gonna do it in an open hearing, that's for sure. Okay, so the transmission portion was removed. That's easy enough. We didn't at this point, and again, I personally, speaking for myself, don't think the additional breakdown of the construction costs at this committee level is either A, recognized by them and understood, they can give to us, or B, important to have in the application at this precise moment. That's in the cost-benefit analysis discussion. That might be several months down the road. Any disagreement
No,
or
totally
discussion on
agree.
that? John?
No.
Okay, you good with that? 9. Okay, this is another one where I think this will come up more at the board level as we go through. A lot of the other sources of financing for the project, you know, we brought forward that there certainly are other public sources that I'm certain are being considered in addition to private. Right now, it's all to be determined. Any disagreement that at this point, I mean, it is to be determined. That's probably the most appropriate answer. John, any other comment?
Well, my question would be, how many people took the time to listen to that bond buyers? Because there's a different type of financing the power authority is going to put forward that could change dramatically how we move forward. Because the power authority has one program where they're going to pre-purchase 65% of the power to reduce the cost for outside financing. And that could have a significant impact in the pilot negotiation. So when they say to be determined, if we go out and negotiate a pilot, and then all of a sudden they get a deal like that, that could have significant,
Yeah.
you know, just getting too far down the road before you determine what their financing package is for the taxing jurisdictions could be an issue.
I agree, and putting that on hold till we get to the full board and do the cost-benefit analysis. Do you feel that will hold up reviewing the application and moving it to the board? I agree, it'll change how we determine what the final
I
number
think
is.
that type of thing could affect the pilot negotiations, and one of the letters that you forwarded to us yesterday, they're looking for 2 months for pilot negotiations.
That's
unrealistic.
That's unrealistic.
Okay, all right.
We've never done that. Technically, I can tell you over the 20 years I've been here, this is the first application that at board level, board committee level, that we've gone through. Normally, your applications are accepted by staff. What the application does, when the staff looks at it, they deem that they got enough information in the application to start doing, to allow the staff to move forward and work. And that's all I think we should be looking at is, do we think that we got enough application here to allow our staff to start, you know, doing more work on this, knowing that we're not going to do this in a 2-month period or a 3-month period, or I can't foresee personally that we get anywhere near this for finalization and get a lot of answers and definitely.
Well, there's two things. I mean, we know we have this Fort Drum issue that's been reported. Whether it is an issue or it isn't an issue, that has to be worked out amongst a heck of a lot more knowledge than me. And also what Paul's brought up, something that I've always brought up early on, and it's not at the committee level, but what other public sources are being put in here. I mean, if the state's gonna chunk in 65% of, the power output, that's certainly gonna change how the numbers look on the other side. So, I mean, and I'm sure Don and the rest of the group here clearly understand that.
We're well
And, I mean, even from Don, the very next thing he needs to do, once this thing gets, accepted, is we haven't had all 3 taxing jurisdictions in one room to sit and talk.
That's right.
We're sitting here,
I don't
hopefully.
bring up the schedule, Rob, because if you read the emails, Apex is claiming we're dragging our feet, and they're talking about looking at it 487 over this agency. They talked about the 15-year, and they have an aggressive schedule, and they want it in 2 months. And I think that we have to make it clear that, back to them, early on, that we don't see it going in 2 months.
Okay.
It's unfair to them to say, yeah, we'll move forward with this, and they put a schedule of, October, November.
Well, we asked them for what their expectations were. and
We did.
they gave us. So now we can go back to them and say,
I
your
understand.
expectations
I think we
are
have to be
unrealistic.
fair with them to tell them that.
Well, I think we have to tell them.
But again,
their
that's
expectations
gonna
are
come from
unrealistic.
the full board
that
discussion,
comes
not.
Yeah, that'll come from the full board. And, like I just mentioned about all of the affected taxing jurisdictions, I will guarantee you the county won't even think about this till November or December. They're in budget mode right now. They're not thinking of anything else except budgets.
And the thing is, unlike some of the other things that come right under our UTEP, all we're tasked with doing with this is to develop an instrument that we can put out to the taxing jurisdictions that give them the ability to see, they don't have the staff level that we have with the expertise to start putting these together. So we put together an instrument, and that goes to the taxing jurisdictions, and then it's their baby and their call. You guys on the board up there are gonna say, yep, we're gonna sign on to this, or nope, we're not going to, regardless of what is done at this level here. But what we wanna do is give them all the information that we can.
Yeah, at
and
the
an
committee
instrument-
level.
And then an instrument that they can say, okay, yep, we'll accept this,
Yeah.
or no, we don't, or we want more. Or
Yeah,
like that.
and I think, to Dave's point, early on when we're going through this, we clearly did go through it fairly exhaustive, but we listed, because mainly the full board has been attending these meetings, it's kind of like a quasi,
Well, no,
not, so we have a list of 15 items that we really didn't delve into that aren't appropriate at the committee level. So we're identifying as much as we can. I personally, again, don't think that is an important answer to accept or deny the application, whether it's blank or to be determined or whatever, but it's an important issue to know the answer to before we
Before
can
we're done.
move forward
absolutely.
to the end goal.
Oh, absolutely.
Any disagreement with that? I mean, we certainly take the point, Paul, and I think we have to understand that and know that, and
Parenthetically, Rod, I've been doing this a long time, and I've yet to see a developer who is not anxious for this process to move forward.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, you tell the developer that this is the IDA process. It's not the developer process, and we have requirements, both legal, ethical,
Sure.
moral, if you will, to investigate thoroughly what we do.
Yeah.
And so they have to accept whatever that process may be. But the board sets that process. The developer does not. We
Yeah.
obviously try to encourage speed and
Correct.
as best we can, but staying within the parameters you guys established.
And that's fair, and that's why at the beginning I tried to recap some of the dates, because I mean, me standing outside looking in, it took 3 months to get an updated application from our request for such. So I mean, we're dragging our feet, we believe the process is moving slower on the developer side, and, both parties aren't talking every day and saying, where's this, where's that, and maybe it was a bad email address, you don't know, there's many sort of different, we have it in front of us now, I guess, number 6 and number 7 from this letter, whether they're filled in or updated, they've affirmed the dates are proper because they notarized the dates, so I think 7 is appropriate. Whether the dates are realistic, that's for the developer to determine. They're faced with, obviously regulatory process through the state, they're faced with whatever process we have here to go through the affected taxing jurisdictions, and then their own challenges of buying and building an industrial facility. They've affirmed the rereading how this is filled out, the 5 permanent jobs are for the project, it's 3 from Jefferson County. Actually, if I had taken the time to read all of the asterisks and everything, it's a fairly big
There
chunky
always are
thing.
a lot.
There's a lot of stuff in there, so that's answered appropriately for number 8. 5 permanent jobs created, 3 would be in the labor market area, which is defined as Jefferson, Lewis, and Oswego, I think. I forgot what we called the labor market. I think it's Jefferson, Lewis, and Oswego. I don't think we included St. Lawrence.
Well, I think
Maybe we
the
did.
Labor Department had
Whatever.
that-
It was in one of our minutes of the board thing before. Attachment A was updated. And I don't know if anybody had any questions on that. The only question I have, and I think we can ask for this to be removed, I don't think there should be mention of the city of Oswego and the county of Oswego in an application to the IDA. I thought that's a carryover from the transmission line, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
And maybe for my most knowledgeable electrical generation guy here, Bill, interconnection substation facility, would that be on the island or in Scriba? What would that be? Okay, so Roman numeral number 5 should probably be removed, as well as the city of Oswego. I thought those were both carryovers from the transmission line.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
So that we can get the right description. And again, John or Dave, I wouldn't see that as a holdup at this committee level, but this should be cleaned up before the full board gets.
Yeah, because we've already talked about they've taken the
Well, they've taken it out, they just left words in by mistake, I believe. I mean,
It's a carryover, I think.
so I think you can also, Don, when you engage Apex, make sure Roman numeral 5 is the only thing that would have been with the transmission facility. I think that is, because the collection substation, Bill, is that also on the island, or is that?
Collection would be on the island.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so it's just Roman numeral 5 looks to be aligned with the city of Oswego, county of Oswego, should probably get yanked out of there.
So should we request that be removed before this goes to the board?
I think, my personal opinion, we can tentatively say these things are going to be pen and ink removed. We'll engage the applicant, it'll go before the board, because I don't think there's really gonna be time at the September meeting anyway. And this is not a 1-month process, as Dave just said.
Exactly not. And you're gonna find a number of those as we go forward that we'll read it 10 times and somehow, so there'll be a lot of.
But I think at this committee level, if we're making pen and ink changes to say we're accepting the application on the basis that these things are changed, and I don't know, is that appropriate, Joe? Okay. Once you amended, okay, they re-notarized it, we got the escrow discussion. That's it from the letter that was sent. I might have had 1 or 2 other additional comments. So far, we've asked for a balance sheet. Certainly can be sent just to Lyle, parent company or holding company, whatever, just so that there's something on file. Something we brought up a long time ago that I don't remember the answer, should be in the file also, the inducement letter. The inducement letter that would have started this whole process. I don't remember what the answer was. There should be one of those in file that at least somewhat dates the time of this application. Even though it's being updated, we have time now to get one if it's retroactive.
Well, typically, we've accepted and dated the application. That would be, found in the file. Then the inducement resolution, which is really the initial resolution, would start the process.
Okay.
So, Joe, tell me if I'm wrong, but the way we've done it in the past is the board has said, okay, pass a resolution accepting the application and allowing the process to go forward. And that would be your inducement resolution,
Okay.
the initial resolution.
So the resolutions, I remember from a couple meetings ago, I thought Paul brought this up, that there should have been something from one of the affected taxing jurisdictions requesting a pilot. Maybe I'm totally off base on
Well,
that.
that's what this is, I think.
Okay.
It's a request formalized
Okay.
for a payment.
That's fine. If I misunderstood, I just wrote a note. I was going through like all of the last 15 meetings of things that didn't seem to be resolved, so never mind. So balance sheet, that appendix A, words. John or Dave, was there anything that sort of came out?
That I can think of. I mean, the stuff that's being thrown out as a concern, that's really a process.
Yeah, the
of
biggest things.
Project, not the application approval
Correct.
process.
That's exactly right.
I don't-
Okay. And we'll get more into the cost of the construction, because it seemed like the transmission line was reported to be 37 million, but only 30 million came off. But I mean, I think that'll modify itself monthly as we move forward.
That's why it takes 3 or 4 months for these processes to wend its way through.
Just
You
to
know,
get all
we start getting into it and start asking questions about what's provided to us.
Well, I know when you get into these estimates, I mean, and this is considered an estimate.
It's-
Engineering firms,
Yeah,
50% minus 20, I mean, it's big numbers, a swing, I mean, when you talk about a budgetary number.
they're
so-
putting together their best guess based on past execution of other projects, even outside of New York
Yeah,
State,
that's,
not
you
on
know,
an
their
island.
experience, they're experienced developers, they'll be closer than somebody who never had an experience. But things change dramatically during the course of one of these things, a couple of years of process.
You probably never built one on an island where you had to get.
I think that's absolutely true, Paul.
An island in the middle of the winter.
Or weather,
In winter.
weather, inclement
Yeah,
weather.
exactly.
I gotta agree with Paul that before all is said and done, that at some point, if they get into this pot of money that the state's talking about, your taxing jurisdictions are definitely gonna look at it differently.
I think
You know.
the agency's gotta look at the difference, because that 65% of our money could render this agency unnecessary. Because if you go from having 65%, that means you only gotta borrow 35% when you figure your equity, you know, what they put up front. Probably conventional financing without all our fees looks more attractive. So it could, you know, maybe.
Is that something new, Paul?
Yeah.
It's a new program,
Yes,
it's a
it
new
is.
RFP. The other thing that I found very troublesome with the power authorities in plan is their vision is, they're gonna build new power lines, to get renewable energy out of upstate to fund economic development down there. That was clear. Did you listen to it?
I didn't hear that.
But they talked about getting power from here to make economic development happen downstate. Not once did they talk about using this new program to create renewable energy, to create jobs.
In addition, the governor's,
Construction in the North Country, and I found that very troublesome with the power authorities plan.
the governor's office has also allowed all forms of renewable energy to be exported out of the state and count towards our renewable credits in our state.
So I just the vision that we're gonna generate renewable energy and then to create jobs elsewhere. I mean, you know, the good jobs elsewhere, I found offensive in their plan.
Well, you ever listen to the president of the United States?
Well,
He doesn't want anybody living up here.
That's part of what the IDA will have to do, in my opinion, is to try to make sure that our commitment to this type of alternative energy finds a value for our community, in addition to the payment in lieu of taxes, which are substantial and often ignored. There's other benefits that we can accrue, assuming we negotiate collectively and effectively when these projects surface. Not just the wind farm. We have 3 or 4 other developers now looking for biomass facilities, large commercial solar, because, in no small measure, because of what Paul just indicated. This upfront, take the PPA money, shove it in construction costs up front. Now you're encouraging enormous amount of development, but we have to ensure that development provides benefit to our community. And I think that's the mission of this organization, is to make sure we sit down. We just don't act as a pass-through, take the benefit of the taxes and then go away. Let's see what else we can determine. Could we get some of that low-cost power, for example, determined to be distributed to our own local community, where we can take advantage of that? And that's the kind of thing we need, in my view. We need
it's not low-cost power.
But I mean, I think I hear what you're saying, but I don't know that we have a lot of control over some of that stuff, because, I was approached by energy guys wanting to put up a bank of solar somewhere over in the other side of Oneida or somewhere, and sell power to us over that. I mean, that sort of thing is going on because these are
There's a lot of it.
opportunities for people or companies to do those sort of things. And if there's open land somewhere, they'll put a bank of these up and then they'll find a home for the electricity. And that's what's going on.
That's the PPA. You're gonna
But-
be the
but they-
agreeer.
There's a lot of factors involved, including the amount of transmission available to get that power to where they want to distribute. But the entire process of generating and distributing energy is being reassessed and realigned as we speak. And I think it's incumbent upon us to try to keep track of that and see what advantages that we can use to bring to our community. My view is what we've said for the last 4 or 5 years, we can be a place where we generate this product, which is energy, and sell it to somebody else, rather than somebody in New York paying somebody in Saudi Arabia to provide some energy to them. Let's provide that same money to the people in Northern New York, where they can then take that money and reconstitute it and rebuild their communities. And trust me, it's not an easy thing to say, to articulate, but it can be done. We have to be firm in our negotiations, and that, like I say, if you sit at my desk, I see this 3 times a day now. Because this thing that Paul is talking about, and I listened to that webinar myself, that's causing an enormous amount of development activity, but that means a lot of generation money that is poised to come to Northern New York, money we didn't have before. Some of that's going to end up here if we're playing our cards right. But it's a matter of negotiation.
Before I ask for a resolution, or excuse me, any closing comments? We can go around the table or just speak if you have any additional comments about discussed or where we're headed.
I got one.
Go ahead.
Our application process, it seems that this is both controversial and a very unique situation. And while that being said, when we have businesses or other people, commercial, that are looking to situate here versus North Carolina or somewhere else, they always will read our paper and they'll see how the community is accepting applications or how we're doing business. I'd like to make sure this application process has been more stringent because of the type of project it is, and because of how hey, you got pro-wind, you got anti-wind, boom, boom, boom. If you throw it up there, it's probably 50-50. So I want to make sure that everybody realizes and that this application process is a lot more in-depth than a normal application process would be, so that any commercial operation that wants to put an application into us, we're willing to accept their applications if it's something that's good for our community and good for the county. I think it's important that is out there.
Okay, I agree. I'm newer to this board, and the only thing I can say is that the application is designed to fill in the blanks so we can do a cost-benefit analysis. And because of the size of the project, there's a lot of questionable answers the first time. We asked for some more information, and we certainly still don't, as a full board, have enough to really do a cost-benefit analysis. So point taken that this has certainly taken longer to move from committee to board. Whether it was in the board or not, the time to the end is still going to probably be the same amount of time.
It's the acceptance of an application that, and that's all it is. It's really the application, what it says, it's an application to start the process.
Well, from my opinion, I don't think when they initially put this in, they had all their information, all their ducks lined up to
Oh, no,
at that time
I don't
anyway. So
disagree.
there's been a lot of time lag here, but to some degree, they weren't prepared to get it the information
Right.
we needed it at the
No,
time.
I agree.
And they still have some hurdles. I don't know if we've heard anything more from Fort Drum in terms of how this will work or not work with them.
Ongoing processes.
Yeah,
Best way
again,
to say it.
that's not really what we're here. This is just to review this application. Then you gotta have the fallout of the project itself, which goes to the full board, and then the discussion starts on that.
Lisa, there's no more important consideration than whether or not this negatively affects Fort Drum. I would personally be affronted
I thought that would all come out
bringing
in
an
Article
application to the board.
Doesn't that come out in Article 10?
Right.
Should.
35
I mean,
years
that's why I'm
working out there,
surprised it
spending
came
most
from
of my
that.
life
Well,
couldn't do that.
and I seen today's paper, actually an article that Marcus wrote about the bat studies that we're testing now for Apex.
Yeah. And those are all the stipulation things in Article 10.
But you say that, Don, I read the article where FDRL went out there, and I know you put an email out that you're going to Fort Drum, and I don't know who else you're taking from staff or from the board, but we're accepting an application with a Fort Drum on the table. That's what we've done. So, I don't have a problem with that, but this could get a month, 5 months down the road, and something come out of Fort Drum, and we're gonna say, no. Okay, so, you know, that goes back to we'd like to have an answer, you know, closing by the end of the year. I forget what their timeline for this closing, but till we have that firm answer from Fort Drum, Apex deserves to know that could be a drop dead issue for this agency being a participant. And let's face it, all we're doing is the lender. We can't say the project can go forward. They go find conventional financing, or they pay for the taxes. They can do that, but for this agency, Fort Drum could be a drop dead issue. Is that what, is that a safe thing to say?
It is absolutely a drop dead issue.
And I've already conveyed that in no uncertain terms
I mean, we have, as much as I'm concerned about some things, but we also have to be fair to Apex and let them know what our thresholds are.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I think not counter, but in addition to that, and then we'll ask for a resolution so we can just move this thing along. You know, the 25,000 escrow, I think it is fair to convey, just sort of along the lines of what Paul's saying, is that it's their money we're gonna be spending, so that kind of every step of the way, here's what we wanna do, make sure that they're okay with advancing the project along, which I believe in all of the correspondence, they firmly believe they're gonna go through whatever obstacles may or may not exist. And again, I don't claim any knowledge of what may or may not exist. I don't know enough about it. But to ask the applicant as we move along, hey, we think we're gonna be spending $5K this month to do X. Really sort of, that's how I treat, I'll call it a time and material estimate. They're giving you a pot of money, which is your estimate, and then just kind of like give a look ahead and say, we're gonna spend $5K this month to do X, do you want us to go forward with that?
I think that's
And just kind of get an acceptance.
what they asked for.
Well, I'm gonna draft an escrow agreement.
Okay.
I've already asked Joe.
Okay. Yeah,
Got some
Legal end of
drafts.
it.
yeah.
Right here.
But I'm kind of like saying, I think different than what we spoke about. We were talking about giving them a reconciliation of what we did spend. I'm talking about a look ahead that we think next month, maybe this is what you and Joe had already spoken about. We think we're gonna spend 5,000 next month.
Exactly.
So that we don't take them
And
by
what are we-
surprise.
and what are we using it for?
Yeah. Not our money, so I don't like spending anyone else's money. And I don't think it's fair to us or the applicants, who should kind of.
Well, if you look back at Blue One, the escrow agreement's as much as protection for the developer as it is for the agency.
It is.
So, I think once you get that in place, it's good for both parties.
I agree, and I just, put that out there, that there are some, what I'll say, hurdles and obstacles that are really a little bit outside of the purview of the agency or the committee. I mean, bats in Fort Drum, not that they're unimportant, but we can't really discuss that. We're here about the other side of it. There's regulatory process within New York State and the federal government that will hopefully look after these items and determine if they are or not issues. We can only talk about the money side of things and the types of jobs and the cost of benefit of those jobs and whatever taxing pilots that come back to the affecting taxing jurisdictions. Can't talk today. So, any other questions from our attendees or guests? Okay, I guess ask for a motion to accept the application. I think we talked about two things, that one thing to be modified in Appendix A, and then Lyle can get a balance sheet, I think is what I wrote down, if there's nothing else missing.
And the escrow
And
established that.
Well, the escrow is
escrow
already
account that
a predetermined
That's
thing.
in work in progress.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we
Okay.
forward this to the full board for acceptance.
With those two
Yes,
modifications.
with those modifications.
John?
Second.
Okay. Motion carries. Well, I guess that you're both gonna vote yes on your motion, right? So,
Yep.
so we'll move it to the full board, the application, we'll get the two modifications. The escrow agreement is an ongoing process.
And let's please put that in, that it's an acceptance, not an approval.
Correct. We're only accepting an application for the full board.
Did you hear that? Acceptance, not approval.
Moving an application for much more further discussion to the full board. And I think this was something that we discussed before, the full board and staff will not spend 1 minute until the escrow account is established. I think that was agreed. But the application can go in front of the full board to at least be on the agenda, so it can be a continuing item.
Can I get a copy of that application, please? Since I have to put it in the packet.
Yes, ma'am. I apologize, I copied the rest of the board.
Yeah, I'm like, I have no
And
idea what
I
you guys are talking
forgot
about.
about copying you, because I assumed you got it going down, so that was a bad assumption on my part.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Well, I only did it last evening, I'm like, oh, there was a limited distribution of this.
Well, part of the issue is if we have 24 drafts, sometimes we like to sort it out a little bit
Yeah.
before we actually get down to it.
I just felt if people attended the meeting, to actually have the current one and not talk about 3 applications ago. Okay, so that's there. I guess any other business for the committee to consider
No,
or
but
discuss?
If you'll allow me, Rob, while we have most of the members here, many of them, to let you know that our tour is developing nicely on the 7th, and we have a number of individuals coming, which I think will help us refine what we're doing in the various elements. We are also going to be joined by members of Lewis County. Their new administrator will be here. Perhaps the chair of the IDA, Rocky Fawcett, who's also a legislator. They want to come and further cement the relationship we have with them. So that's a very positive thing. Dr. Ty, the new president of the college, will be joining us, as will Dan Doopy, who is the guy who is responsible for a lot of their work at the college, because we'll be hearing more about the expansion of our microgrid at the college. We'll have, what I hope Bill tells me, several legislators there. Our board, we have consultants and engineers who are going to join us so we can talk about it. One of our developers will be with us so he can share some of the ideas that we have for the new ag park. All in all, I think it's going to be a very interesting time. We respect your time, so we're going to try to keep it down to about somewhere between 2 and 2.5 hours. Also respect some people who are getting older, and we'll try to do most of this on the bus rather than run around the field.
Run around the field, I'm just not going to.
So you don't have to wear, you don't have to wear hiking boots or anything like
Bring my
that.
walker.
We're gonna get them a motorized.
I was gonna say, got a little motorized one to ride around the village?
You know.
Do they come with turf tires?
Yeah. And if we have 55, and we upgraded the bus now to the coach, as they call it, to 55, so we can probably take a couple more if there's someone or some group that you think needs to be represented. Again, this is information, we just want to share some of the things that are going on, and hopefully help people understand that the agency is much more involved in things other than just wind. I think that's the important.
And Peggy, the meeting starts at 7:30, correct? On
Yes.
September 7th? And we
That's
canceled the JCLDC,
Correct.
so it's just the IDA and
Civic facility.
the other one, the other acronym.
Yeah.
It's too long.
I will, and let me also add that we are working on a significant bond issue. Some of you have seen now some of the material that is out there. This is.
Will that be at this board meeting?
We will have an resolution
Okay.
at that meeting. shortly thereafter, we'll be setting up public hearings. I don't want to go into it too much publicly
No,
right at
that's
the
fine.
moment. But it's a very big issue, and it's a very important issue for the community. And so you'll be hearing lots more of that. And suddenly, after our meeting, and you'll be hearing details on the 7th, you'll be hearing a lot more about the specifics of that. But I'm very pleased. It's a big deal for the community. So we're working on it.
I have, under other business, it's somewhat related to the last discussion, but not entirely. Back in our May loan review committee meeting, we're kind of working with, Don put together an agenda that were like 10 points. We never really finished going through those, and that would be better to move to the full board along with the application. There were a number of things about when public hearings are gonna happen, so it's kind of like, it was meant to be about bigger projects in general, but it was specific to Apex Glue because the only thing we're really considering at this point. At the time, we thought there might be a couple other ones coming down the pike,
There may be.
and there still may be. So I guess my only comment with other business is whether we take this 3 or 4 page document that's had some comments by, looks like myself and Paul have made some comments to it. Really just to have a discussion at a board meeting, or whether you need a special hearing or just do it by email, just kind of like work through some of the particulars and come up with how we move forward on certain things. They're not earth-shatteringly deadlines about this got to be done by a certain time, but just further stuff to consider.
It may be helpful, Rob, to remember we're now reaching the point in our annual process where we have to start holding governance meetings and those kinds of meetings coming up where that may be an appropriate discussion.
Yeah.
And we can kind of work our way through that as we look forward to these.
I'll be
So you can remember, I can give you a copy of that, but it was this document that's gone through. We've basically done it by email. We really haven't had a chance to discuss it entirely in depth in all the committee hearings, because it was going to be so exhaustive. We didn't want to spend till 11 o'clock every other.
A lot of this stuff will,
I think a lot of it's been sorted
come out
out,
in
but
different committees.
it will definitely come out.
And I guess by this, we do have, under our state regulations, we have a certain number of committee meetings we're going to have prior to October, unfortunately. I hate to throw a lot of meetings on people, but I'll ask Peggy to send out questionnaires to everybody to try to figure out when we can best get these meetings in over the next 30 days. Some of them we'd like to double up on because it's basically mostly the same people. Unfortunately, when you get a group of 7 people, they're mandatory meetings, and so we'll put together some dates and get them out to everybody and see when we can get these scheduled.
Okay. I guess any other business or discussion that we haven't gotten to yet for the committee? I'm gonna get ready to adjourn it if you don't speak. Okay, well, I guess we can call adjourn the meeting and enjoy our days and be safe.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.